Hello, friends. It's Phil, and today this is going to be a bit of a shorter podcast because I'm going to just try and whiz through how to develop the perfect garden. It's done in 4 stages, and the reason why I'm sharing this is I thought it'd be really, really useful to explain to you, wherever you may be in the world, how all gardening, the business that I've been building, let's say, for 19 years and will continue to be building for the next 19, I was going to explain how we do things. So the 4 stages are these, and I'll tell you them all now. And then if you want to sit around for a little bit longer and learn about the individual stages and my views of each, great. But the 4 stages are like this. The first stage is lawn plan. You plan your lawn. Basically, you plan what you want your lawn to look like, what shape it should be, what condition it should be in, what level it should be in. You need to determine that because your lawn is 92% of your gardens, typically, statistically. The second stage is garden plan. Now, the important part about garden plan is it's not just garden maintenance. It's not just the hygiene element, the weed management, the digging over piece. It's actually garden plan is understanding what you're going to do with your beds, the plant beds, what you're going to do with planting in terms of shrubs, specimen plants, herbaceous plants, bulbs, alpines, other stuff. It's developing a garden plan. The third stage is tree plan. Now, the important thing about tree plan is it's quite a simple stage, but one that needs careful consideration. So, when planning a tree, well, the question I pose is actually, have you ever planted a tree? Most haven't. But the thing is, plant a tree in the right place, it will stay there for a long, 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 long time, contributing to your garden and ultimately contributing to the environment around the tree. The fourth stage is once you've done your lawn planning, you've done your garden planning, and you've done your tree planning, the next piece is you need to go online or go shopping and you need to find the bits and pieces that pull it together and give it your personalization. Those are the 4 stages. So, look, that's 3 minutes. So, if you want to now whiz off and do something else, then now's your chance to do that. And you can listen to those 3 minutes time and time again. But for those that you're going to hang around, I'm just going to run through those 4 stages in a bit more detail. So we have the 4 stages, and it's your garden. The most important thing to consider before employing any of the 4 stages, and just to remember that the 4 stages can be done in any order. From my perspective, there's a best order and then there's an any order, right? Is that the first thing you need to consider is you need to consider whether you're going to do what you want to do in the garden or whether you're going to hire some expert help. And those two things are called DIY or it's called DIFM. Do it for me. I don't know who coined DIFM, but look, it's not popular use, is it, that term? But DIY is. So before you employ the 4 stages, you want to be thinking, who's going to do what I want to get done? That's the first stage. Now, my view is the best order to do this is stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we start with lawn plan. And the reason why I say that is because 92, as I said earlier, 92% of all gardens is lawn. And the great thing about determining what you're going to do with your lawn, once you know what you're going to do with it, you can kind of very, very easily set out a plan for what you're going to do with it. whether or not it's going to be a family lawn, whether it's going to be a fine lawn, whether it's going to be a lumpy, bumpy lawn, whether you're going to naturalize bulbs in the lawn, which isn't a very good idea, by the way, generally, but it looks nice from time to time. Whether you're going to basically leave parts of it to meadow, and so on and so on. All depends on the size of your lawn. But keep in mind, it's 92% statistically of your garden. So get it right, and the garden at any time of year will have form, shape, and kind of a purpose. So you've done your lawn plan piece. Now, the second part, garden plan, the way to think about this is the first thing you should do when considering your garden planning, the planning of the plant beds, is you need to consider the soil that you've got in the planting beds. And the most important thing is you want to be able to work with the soil. So if you find that it's covered in weeds and it's full of rubbish and so forth, the first thing you've got to decide is what you're going to do to improve the soil. And one of the easiest ways to deal with this is if you're going to start from scratch, that is, or even if you're going to infill, let's say, the most important thing is in winter, or let's say early spring, do a really good job of weeding the area as best you can on a nice dry day, and then mulch the beds. Get loads and loads and loads and loads. Get a big bag of compost and basically just put 100 mil, 10 centimeters of mulch down across the beds. And you don't have to dig it in, you can just leave it there, because the worms and nature will do a very good job of redistributing that product to where they see fit. And keep in mind, the compost will break down anyway. So once you've done your soil improvement, the next thing you want to do is basically understand your garden and understand what's going to work and what's going to fail. Now, a really good clue for how to think about this is like, not think, what would I like to put in my garden? I'm going to go online and look at stuff. The best way to work out what plants will work in your garden that you would like to work with is go to your local nursery or plant center, as long as it's a good plant center, because you will find that they will have plant stocks available that will work in your local area. And across the year, across the year and across the country, the plant stocks will differ depending on the local area. Because look, most garden nurseries and most local garden centres will want to not have plants come back that have died or have complaints about dying plants. So they're always going to, a good nurseryman will err on the side of providing plants that are going to be successful locally. So that's your planting plan. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, and it was talked about the other day with a client, was some plants take a long time to mature, to become something that you'd want them to become. And it is worth investing in certain plants to get you there faster. An example, I had a Japanese maple, an Acer. I had two in my garden in London. And when I planted them, they were absolute tiddlers, which was fine because that's all the budget I had. But some 15 years later, when we left that property, those plants were spectacular. They were absolutely spectacular. Unfortunately, I couldn't dig them out of the ground and transplant them. Didn't think that would actually work from London to Harrogate to North Yorkshire anyway. But I had learnt over that period of time is that those aces could actually have been bought as mature stocks. Would have cost a lot more than the baby plant, but actually I would have had a much more, let's say, complete garden earlier. So it's just worth considering. Specimen plant purchasing is a good idea. And the other thing that I really think is a really, really good investment, well, there's two things actually. One is, if you've never considered proper lighting in your garden, it's a really good idea because what it does is it extends your pleasure of the garden into the evenings, whether it's from an onlooking point of view. Or the other thing is it just makes it look, it just gives you layers of difference in the garden. The other thing I was going to say is that planting bulbs, I mean, really, really, really good quality bulbs, is an absolute pleasure to see them come through. And if you've never been there, which most of us haven't, a bulb supplier that I think does direct to consumer, but it's a big trade supplier. It's based in Stanmore in northwest London, called Jack Armand or Jack Almond. Not sure. It's certainly not French, but might be Dutch. I don't know. But the owners of that bulb place gather some of the best bulbs in the world, and I think they distribute them across the UK to garden centres and private households. But the bulbs that I've taken from Jacques Armand have always been incredible. There's one particular year that I planted an absolute bashing of Flotillery Imperialis, and my God, if you've never seen one of those come out of the ground and show, they're extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. Check them out online, Flotillery Imperialis. Anyway, so look, that's your stage 2. That's your garden planning. It's planning soil conditions, planning plant maturity, planning bulbs, planning lighting. That's as I'd recommend it. Stage 3 is what I call tree plan. Now, tree plan is something that's not considered by enough people in my experience. I've got one distinct memory of actually putting in landscaping a garden, which wasn't very big, probably about 80 square meters, tiny little place. And I remember all we put into the garden at the end of the project were 2 cherries. The cherry was Stella, and actually they fruited beautifully because from time to time we'd go back there and do the lawn plan. We'd do lawn treatments for that garden. But the important thing about tree planning or tree plan is it's something that very few people do because maybe they just either don't think about it, don't know where to start, or think it's too much hassle. But planting a tree is an incredibly enriching experience if you really take part in what you're doing. There's a saying that I've recently picked up. I don't know where I got it from, but I think it's to do with like oak trees, as an example, is that if you plant an oak tree, you will never sit beneath the canopy of it because it will take 50 or 100 years to develop a real canopy. And the chances are, if you plant an oak tree, you're only gifting it to the future, which actually I really like the idea of. But most trees, they'll need anywhere between 10 and 20 years of successful growth to be anything. So therefore, the thing about it is that the planning and the processing of your trees, or a tree, because that's statistically most gardens have one tree, and if you haven't got one tree, find a tree to plant, is that it just takes time and investment to get the right tree, and then you plant it and then you look after it and it will grow for as long as you are there to see it grow, or it will keep growing past when you've either moved or your time has come. So that's stage 3. And stage 4, just to kind of explore that a bit more, obviously, when I first launched All Gardening back in 2004, let's say the internet is just getting its mojo together to some extent. And actually buying stuff online was not really very easy. I remember trying to do a direct to consumer compost delivery website, and actually it was too early. It was clunky. Payments were clunky. PayPal wasn't really where it is now, and all the other payment gateways. It was just hard to do. But now the internet and e-commerce gives you a world of opportunities. And I guess the most important thing is there's two things here, is that the idiosyncrasies, the sort of the things that make your garden unique to you. Once you've gone through stage 1, 2, 3, lawn plan, garden plan, and tree plan, the last part is basically just finding the things that make your garden unique to you. And keep in mind, obviously, like I've said, statistically, gardens are very, 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 very similar. Statistically. But inside those gardens, there are many, many idiosyncrasies. Things, objects, stuff. And that is best done finding the stuff I'd say on the internet. And eBay is a very good place for finding stuff. Etsy is a really good place to finding stuff. And probably, well, I'd say those two places. Trash and treasure. I think that's the idiosyncrasy that I sense within some of the best gardens that I've ever visited. Anyway, so there we go. How do you develop the perfect garden? Two-part thinking. DIY or do it for me. 4 stages. Stage 1, plan your lawn. Stage 2, plan your gardening. Stage 3, plan your trees. And stage 4, plan your character, let's say. So anyway, that's all for today. Thanks for listening. Hopefully you found that useful. I will catch you again very, very soon. Take care. Ta-da. Bye.